One of the things that I'm realizing the older I get is that the issue in our life is not the call. Now, when I grew up, people in my position that stood behind the pulpit, they would use, and again, I don't want to downplay this, but they would use phrases like, well, I received my calling, or this is when I was called, or this is when I knew I was called. And the context was, that's when I knew I was called to be in ministry, standing behind a pulpit, and there was somehow this call that came to them. The older I get, the more I realize the call's not the issue. Everybody's called. Every single one of you are called to change the world. Every single one of you are called to lead in whatever realm you're in, and you're all called to carry the presence of God. You're all called to be part of a team that's changed the world. Maybe not everybody is called to lead at a national level, but everybody is called to lead locally, and everybody is called to be a part of a national team that's changing the world. This is the mandate on your life. When Jesus said disciple nations, he was not speaking to a few select individuals. He wasn't saying disciple nations, and that's for a handful of you that I call. And then we receive the call, and then now it's our job to disciple nations. When he said disciple nations, he's speaking to everybody. What separates you is not your call. It is the response to the call that separates you. What separates you is the yes. Elisha tells the prophet, he said, listen, go find Jehu. He's going to be in Ramoth Gilead. And I'm about to speak to him, and he's about to have an encounter with me, and I'm going to send him to shift the atmosphere in the nation. But what was required of Jehu, that Elisha made sure this prophet knew, he must separate himself to an inner room. He must stand up and separate himself to an inner room. This was the requirement. The issue is not the call on Jehu's life. The issue and what separates him is the requirement to separate himself. We've mentioned this before, but there's a verse that in my 20s, it used to bug me. It would stress me out. Jesus said twice, he said, many are called, but few are chosen. And I'm passionate, and I'm in my 20s, and I want to change the world, and I want to go after God. And I would read that verse, and I'd be like, I don't understand that verse, but it drives me crazy. Like, why are many called, but few are chosen? I'd get before the Lord in prayer and be like, Lord, I don't want to be in the called category. I want to be in the chosen category. I don't just want to be called. I want to be chosen. But I don't know how you get from called to chosen. And why are many called, but few are chosen? And it would just stress me out. And then I read that verse in context. In Matthew 22, Jesus is telling a story about a king. And a king sends an invitation out to come to the wedding of his son. And the first wave of people that he sends, the first invitations, all of the people, they all have excuses. They all downplay it, and they all have reasons why they don't come to the wedding. Then there's the second invitation that goes out. The second invitation, they all have excuses why they don't either. Finally, on the third, they come. And then he ends the story by saying, many are called, but few are chosen. This is the illustration we use with this. One of the things I hate in life, like hate with a passion, is moving, like physically moving. I hate moving. I did it a year ago. Like when I lived in Redding, we lived in a house for 14 years. I didn't want to move. I hate moving. I hate the whole process. I hate packing. I hate thinking about it. I hate having to load it up. I hate having to go get the U-Haul. I hate moving furniture through doorways that it doesn't fit, and you're banging your hands the whole time. I hate that it's in the middle of the summer and it's 110. I hate unpacking. I hate the whole thing with a deep passion. But what I hate more than moving is I hate helping other people move. I hate that even worse. I hate it even worse. And it's always like people, what they're asking you is, can you give up an entire Saturday in the middle of July when it's 110? And can you come to my house and move a bunch of furniture through doors and pack and take your whole day? And what I'm going to do as a thank you is give you a few slices of pizza. This is what they're asking. And then it drives me crazy if they do little Facebook invites, like they start a little moving group and they call it like, we're having a moving party on Saturday, do you want to come? As if that's fooling anybody. A party, yes. No, I don't want to come. But the problem is, and this is what we talk about, is that in America, and if you're from another country, it could be the same there, but in America, the true test of friendship is whether or not you'll show up and help somebody move. Easily. If you are unsure or uncertain if this person's a friend, tell them you're moving on Saturday. If they show up, they're a friend. If they don't, they were lying and faking it the entire time. They're not real friends. This is the line in the sand for friends. And so the dilemma that I get in is when people move and they come and ask me, hey, will you help me move on Saturday? I know I'm like stuck, because if I don't show up, you're gonna realize I'm not really your friend. And everything in me doesn't want to come. So if you can imagine this, that Gabe comes to me one day and there's a group of guys and Gabe's like, hey, can you come help me move on Saturday? Well, immediately all of us are like, don't make eye contact with Gabe, as I'm frantically trying to find some reason why I can't come on Saturday. I know there's something I have to do. I can't, no. And then, and then one guy raises his hand and says, I'll help you move, Gabe. And Gabe says, well, then I choose you. In the kingdom, this is how it works. The issue is not the call. The reason why there are many called but few are chosen is because there's only a handful that raise their hand. God comes and says, you're called to disciple nations. He calls and says, you're called to lead in revival. You're called to give yourself fully for the glory of God on the earth. This is the mandate and the call on your life. What separates you is not that call. It is whether or not you raise your hand. Jesus comes in a place like this and he says, listen, who will be leaders in revival? Who will give themselves fully to see my glory fill the earth? Who will be the ones that disciple nations? And all of us are one, we're all like, I got some excuse somewhere and I just don't know if I can, and then there's somebody that raises their hand and says, I'll do that, Jesus. And Jesus says, well, then I choose you. The way you get chosen in the kingdom is you raise your hand. You raise your hand. It's what's required. The Lord has an anointing and a message and authority for you. The way you get it is you raise your hand. That's how you get it. To separate yourself. And what he requires from you is that you separate yourself, is that you respond. You want to be in the chosen category. You get in the chosen category by raising your hand.